You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
Alrighty, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am joined, it's Sunday, and I'm joined by the one, the only, the Chris, the Detroit Beastie on Twitter. You see his handle right there. If you're not already following him, you're doing yourself a disservice. The bottom of the barrel, his DFS content is world class, and he's a big Michigan guy, as you can imagine, and he is riding cloud nine right now with a Michigan win.
Yeah, it's I stayed up later than I have in a long time. I stayed up till about 2-3 in the morning, and again, the post-game festivities, even in the Super Bowl, I don't even care to watch, but I was just drawn to it because they haven't seen it in, I believe, 17 years. I mean, when I was a kid, the Lions have sucked since the entire length of my life, but we could always count on Michigan at least winning the Big Ten or playing in the Rose Bowl, and it hasn't come around in a long time. So I was amped up. I was excited. Stayed up later than normal. So when we're done here, maybe I'll go take a nap. Who knows? They got the rest of the day free. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Always look forward to our Sunday morning chats here and getting the DFS plays, breaking down some games, and really going through this one. So, but no, that's exciting for you that the Michigan Wolverines recapturing some Big Ten glory there. It'll be interesting too to see. I know we're talking about pro football, but just to take a little side note here, it'll be interesting to see how the committee decides to rank this and what the semifinals are going to ultimately look like here. So it could be very, very interesting on this one. The biggest thing I'm looking to see, because I can't imagine that both Georgia and Alabama aren't in there. And do we see an immediate rematch in the semifinals of what we just saw in the SEC title game? And I don't know that the committee is going to subscribe to that. So I'm very interested to see who gets one, who gets two, because that's going to ultimately dictate how these matchups look and work.
That's the thing, and as it stands now, literally when you clicked go live and the riff, the guitar riff was going, I was on strolling through to Twitter, and I forget who, Joey Galloway. You remember him? I think he was. He had in his final rankings, like, what does he even do? He played pro football, and that's about it. He had Michigan at number 3, and he was getting killed in the comments. He put Alabama 1, Georgia 2, Michigan 3, and it's like, how does Michigan get bumped down a spot after blowing out a team in their conference championship game? So it's going to be wild to see. Obviously, I mean, how can I say this because I'm such a Michigan homer or a Lions homer here, but to be honest with you, Michigan deserves to be number 1. And I guess it's kind of crappy that I'm with you that the pollers or whoever the selection committee gets together. Too bad if they put Alabama and Georgia again in the first round of the playoffs here. That's the way it should be, and I think it would be awful to Michigan if that's the only reason why. Michigan deserves to be number 1, but for TV and money, we don't necessarily think Alabama and Georgia should meet again back to back. And I mean, it's all dog crap, right? It's all about money and ratings, but it doesn't matter. You're going to put Michigan in the playoff, obviously, and we'll go from there. Let the better team kind of come out on top here.
Yeah, and that was one of those things that we knew we were going to be in for a little bit of a wild ride there when Oklahoma State lost to Baylor early in the day, and that was going to open the things up to the point where now you weren't going to have a Big 12 representative in there. The Pac-12 already wasn't going to be represented in the college football playoff, so you saw things really open up there, and it'll be a fun time to see how this final rankings come out and see what kind of matchups we get on the Tuesday when they bring those out. So it'll be a lot of fun.
One thing I haven't heard anybody mention, right? We've said, Michigan should be 1 and Georgia and Alabama shouldn't play again. What if the selection committee says, you know what, instead of deciding where Michigan goes because Georgia and Alabama, what if they just leave out Georgia? I mean, that's probably not likely, but who's to say? I mean, this is what we're supposed to do. Challenge everything and talk about everything because, the conversation is what's good. Who's to say they just leave out Georgia altogether? That would be wild, but who knows what the heck's going to happen.
Yeah, I can't, I don't see them doing that one. Georgia had been dominant all the way through into the conference championship there. And really hadn't had a close game, except for the very first game of the year. And really just looked dominant down the stretch there. So I think they'll get in. The question is, do they get the 3 seed or do they get the 4 seed, and where that comes to play? But I do think that we're going to see it where the those two get split so that we're not seeing a rematch of the SEC championship game for that one. Because again, right there's a big component, and you already mentioned it, the TV money, ratings money, and that's a lot of what's going on there. Is
Tickets.
They're putting together a lot of a television program there as well, right? And compelling television so that the ad dollars are there.
I would like to think that, I mean, I know you're in Denver, but I would imagine there's common ground here between you and I and most other people around here that are watching this video. Long as Ohio is not anywhere in the top 4, we're good to go. They're home. They're whatever. Who cares what they're doing? And I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah, if you can't even play in your conference championship, I don't know how you
Exactly.
Can play in the national championship type.
Just a little dig. They dominated for so long and finally got over the hump. So
there you go. All righty. Well, I tell you what, let's go ahead and switch the narrative here. Let's go ahead and start moving towards some NFL football here, because I'm sure both you and I could talk college football here all day as well. And unfortunately, my team was eliminated long before this weekend. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to start moving into some NFL games. And this is an interesting slate, right? Like we've seen the last couple of weeks here where there were very tight spreads. There weren't a lot of it made it difficult when you were trying to look through some of these things from a how this game might play out type of thing, and made the narrative a little bit more different. Now we see some big spreads going across the boards. We see some interesting over-unders going on some of these things. And there's just a lot of very interesting games. And I think a lot of games that are going to be maybe a little surprising to some folks out there. And we'll definitely make for some entertaining morning games there. But let's go ahead and let's head straight to your first matchup of the day. Where do you want to take us?
Absolutely. Let's go to not far from where I am, 5 hours south, and that's Cincinnati, where the Chargers and Justin Herbert come in to take on the Cincinnati Bengals. I believe this line has yet to move. It opened at it's about a point down. It opened at the over-under 50.5 points. It's now at 49.5, but the point spread is what I was getting at, hasn't changed. So the Chargers are getting 3 points in Cincinnati. And, if you would have told me, 6-7 weeks ago this game was happening, I wouldn't care. But this one, to me, might be the most exciting game of the slate, aside from Washington at Vegas, which we'll get to here. But the Chargers go to Cincinnati. Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler take on Burrow and Mixon. And this one has all the makings of, I don't want to say an instant classic, but from a DFS perspective, from a seasonal perspective, a lot of people are going to be looking towards this game, given the fact that all our other seasonal teams, there's so many injuries around. But Austin Eckler's healthy. He's rolling. Joe Mixon, healthy. He's rolling here. So to me, from a seasonal format, you're starting anybody and everything in this game that you have. I don't even care if it's Jared Cook or Donald Parham Jr. And on the Cincinnati side of things, from a DFS perspective, Mixon very much in play. $9,400 on FanDuel, on DraftKings. Mixon $8,100. And to me, the odd man, not the odd man out, but the forgotten guy here is Tyler Boyd. $5,000 on DraftKings, and then on FanDuel, Tyler Boyd is $5,700 here. So to me, this is what you see is what you get here. So DFS formats, I have no problem stacking both sides of this ball. Seasonal formats, if you have these guys, you're starting. I do want to briefly mention Jalen Guyton briefly. Cincinnati Bengals, their secondary and their backs, their DBs and their safeties, they're very ball hawkish. I don't know if that's a real word, but if that is,
we'll give it to you.
Yeah, they're ball hawkish, man. They punch the ball out. They're very active. So to me, I could see a case here where they're so up on the line, sold with trying to contain Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, and Mike Williams that Jalen Guyton gets free maybe once or twice. Does Herbert and Guyton connect on both of those, 3 of those? I don't know, but I could see Jalen Guyton catching some sort of 60, 70-yard touchdown pass in this one. So in DFS formats, that would be priceless given his price tag, $4,900 on FanDuel, and on DraftKings only $3,000. Kind of a no-brainer in GPPs on DraftKings here. And the over-under, as I said, was at 50.5. I think I'm going to keep it low-key with the over-under here, but I do like Cincinnati to win this one around 28-21 here. So this is going to be very fun, this one, and it's right off the bat here.
I like it. Yeah, this is one of those games that I had a tough time when I was sitting down and really kind of going through this one, deciding because how I go through my rankings, how I go through that is I ultimately try and figure out what I think the score is going to be and then kind of reverse engineer that to the point where, how do we get to that type of deal where we see points here, and we build the narrative off of that thing there. And this is one of those that I had a tough time because I could easily craft two different narratives to this game where it's going to be one where if you looked up and it's all said and done and you told me that this game ends 24-21, would not have been surprised. On the flip side, if you told me that this game ended 35-32, also wouldn't be surprised on that one, because both of these offenses pack enough firepower that you can see just a shootout happen in this one, right? And both of these teams have some pretty big holes on the defensive side of it. So if they can, if those holes are exploited, you could see a massive swing there. But I do think, but I did kind of settle down where you're talking about the score being on this one. And I do think that Joe Mixon finishes RB1 this week. That's where I've got him in my rankings. I know that that's a little bit, the consensus ranking has him 2 or 3, depending upon where you're looking at. I'm a little bit more bullish on that. I think that he is going to just have a monster day in this one and just goes gangbusters in this one. So I like
Fair
it.
enough. You're looking at well over 20 total targets and touches here. I don't know if you partner with Underdog or any of those guys, but there's a lot of props with Joe Mixon, and I'm hitting the over on all of them. A lot of props on Justin Herbert, hitting the over on all those ones too. So I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun there. Let's go ahead and head out to my matchup, to my first matchup that I wanted to talk about today, and that is the Arizona Cardinals and the Chicago Bears. And so this is the week that we get the long-awaited return of Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins, both of which look like they're going to be available and look like they are active to play in this one. Not seeing any real injury designation carried through on Kyler, but one thing to keep in note is that from reading some of the reports, while DeAndre Hopkins is active, looks like they may use him a little bit more sparingly than they have in the past and what you're used to seeing. So temper expectations when you're looking for that with him. And if you can pivot somewhere, and obviously if you've got DeAndre Hopkins in season long, you've been pivoting already. I would probably stay on that pivot and probably look to go a different route than necessarily plugging him right back in there. Give him a week, let him come back, see how that hamstring is holding up there before you really make that commitment going down through the stretch there, because you're coming down into it. Most fantasy leagues are going to start the playoffs in week 15 this year. So you got this week, next week to finish ironing out your playoff seeding, to finishing ironing out that one. But I do like the Cardinals to win in this one. Justin Fields also out on the Chicago Bears. So this is one of those that, again, when we're crafting narratives, this one here could very easily be that you see the Arizona Cardinals just kind of get out and run away and hide on this game a little bit, where they get up by 10 points type of thing and they slow the ball down. You see not necessarily a ton of the passing volume that we may expect with Kyler coming back, and we see again a very heavy dose of James Conner, and that's kind of the narrative that I'm playing out with this one. I do like David Montgomery on the other side of the ball to play here as well. I think that he's going to ultimately have a pretty darn good game, but I see this one ending in about a kind of in that 24 to 14 type of range, I think is how I'm going to see this one playing out here. Any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think the Arizona Cardinals just absolutely lay waste to the Chicago Bears. Is it still Soldier Field? I don't know. I know it's right on the water there, right off 94. It connects Detroit and Chicago here. But Arizona, I have them hanging 30-plus points, 31-10, 31 something along those lines. So you're going to start any and all of your Arizona Cardinals. It's fantastic that Kyler Murray is going to be back. It's fantastic that DeAndre Hopkins is going to be back. And given the gravity of where the season is with our seasonal fantasy football teams, if you're in the hunt, you have no other option but to use DeAndre Hopkins. You sat on him all these weeks. You sat on Kyler Murray all these weeks. And if you were able to survive being without Kyler Murray, then you're excited to put him back in here, right? The Arizona Cardinals themselves, along with Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins, they might slow play this too, because they have real life NFC playoff aspirations. They're going to get this rolling. And I don't think think Arizona has to do a lot here in this one to really put down Chicago. So it'll be slow, methodical. You said they could get out to 10 plus points. Absolutely. And to me, the whole thing goes through James Conner in seasonal formats, DFS formats. If you look at it, James Conner, $7,300 on FanDuel, on DraftKings, only $5,900. Now, I start looking at optimizers and crunching numbers probably Sunday night, Monday morning for the following week. And James Conner has been a mainstay in all the optimizers I've run, all the projected models I've run. So to me, James Conner is just in a very good spot in DFS formats, in seasonal formats. I will say, you mentioned David Montgomery. Absolutely. Only $6,500 on FanDuel, on DraftKings, DMont, $5,600. Yeah. Does he see, I have Chicago, as I said, putting up 10, maybe 14 points. Does David Montgomery score the only touchdown that Chicago gets today? Could happen, and that's fine. A lot of garbage time. And Andy Dalton was never lighting the world on fire. He was never an A-list quarterback, but he's even taken a step back. He's kind of a shell of himself, holding a spot for Justin Fields. So that's a bummer. We can't see Fields here, but to me, it's all Arizona early and often. And because when you look at the Chicago Bears side of things, Allen Robinson is going to be inactive. Marquise Goodwin, he's already out. So the Chicago Bears have to rely on the trio of Andy Dalton, Damiere Byrd, and Darnell Mooney. And to me, Darnell Mooney is all hands off in DFS formats given his price tag. In seasonal formats, absolutely you're going to play him. So again, all Arizona and little drips and drabs of Chicago Bears in DFS formats.
Yeah, I like that as well. And thank you for bringing up the Allen Robinson. I was going to mention that, and you beat me to it. So I like it. Let's go ahead and head on over to your next matchup here. Who you got?
Yeah, we're going to go to Houston. So from Cincinnati to Houston, I think it's probably like a 2.5-hour flight if you're driving. Going to take the better part of a day here, but we can do that. We can do it in a flash here. We teleport. So the Colts head to Houston. Over under, I believe it opened at 46. It's only come down a point. It's at 45.5 here. Houston's getting 10 points in this one, and I'd be comfortable, taking Indy if they were giving Houston 20 points, to be honest with you. I think that the Indianapolis Colts hang 35 in this one, 35-7. And aside from Jacksonville, I could see a case where Houston just gets shut out, right? Indianapolis Colts are playing some good football, and it runs and goes through Jonathan Taylor, and that's no secret. I'm not saying anything out of school here. So in DFS formats, JT, the most expensive running back on all formats, rightfully so. $10,500 on FanDuel. On DraftKings, Jonathan Taylor, $9,200. I don't know. Maybe I saw this from last week we broadcast to this week. I saw a clip. It was like not a hidden camera, but it was in the Colts, like where the GM and the owner were in a room, and they were whispering. I don't know why, but they were talking about Jonathan Taylor being an absolute stud, being a playmaker. He's humble. He's hungry. He gets it down. This kid can take it to the house at any time. He's a game changer. We got to get this kid the football more. So we can throw out all that wild narrative of Frank Reich. He's only got 10 carries through the first half. That is done and over with. They're going to feed Jonathan Taylor in over 100 yards, multiple touchdowns. I mean, that's in the realm of possibility nowadays with Jonathan Taylor. To me, what are we going to do with the other Indianapolis Colts offensive positions? Jonathan Taylor is a gimme. Carson Wentz, very reasonably priced. I mentioned him in bottom of the barrel. Michael Pittman, absolutely. And before we went live here, not arguing with anybody, but people want to use T.Y. Hilton because that old tired narrative. He does very well against Houston. Absolutely. It's well documented. But you're cherry picking stats from 10, 12 years ago when he was a young kid. These guys in his early to mid 30s now hasn't strung together like a 2-3 game stretch of note in a long time. Before last season, he hadn't had 100 yards receiving since Andrew Luck was the quarterback. I mean, there's nothing that points me in the direction of T.Y. Hilton today in DFS formats. In seasonal formats, I kind of understand it because of all the injuries, but in all honesty, I would prefer Zay Jones. I mean, I would prefer like a handful of other wide receivers in seasonal formats over T.Y. Hilton. And folks will say, They've already told me this morning. Well, yeah, you use it. Why are you so against T.Y. Hilton? It's not that I'm against him. It's just a smart. It's just a smart decision to fade T.Y. Hilton, because if he does anything of note, I can live with it, Derek. It's cool. I can live with it. If he puts up, what's the worst that could happen? 100 yards and a touchdown, 16 points. You can make that up in dozens and dozens of other lineups and stuff here. Do I see 100 yards and a touchdown reception? Absolutely not. So either way, you got to live with it. I'm all off T.Y. Hilton, and that's that. Won't mention it anymore. On the Houston side of things, it's bad. And personally speaking, I have Jalen Hurts in my 14-team dynasty, so I try and be open and honest with folks here. Jalen Hurts, I have to start Tyrod Taylor today, and I'm not happy about it, but it is what it is. Only person available on waivers here, going against the Indianapolis Colts, who are actually, they're 26th against opposing quarterbacks here. So could Tyrod put up a touchdown or two at that? I know I said Houston could be shut out, but Houston could score once or twice, and that's about it. So you go down the list: Rex Burkhead, Brandon Cooks, Nico Collins, Brevin Jordan. I mean, there's nobody on the Houston side of things in DFS formats that are saying anything to me. It's going to be all about the Colts early and often. Get in on it now.
I like it. Yeah, and that's kind of the way that I saw that one playing out there is a kind of a 31-10 type of narrative for this one. And I see Brandon Cooks getting kind of a long touchdown on this one, right? The Colts secondary has been much better lately, but it was a little leaky there at times. We've seen it a couple of times throughout the season there. So I can see a long touchdown there, but I don't see much else happening from this Houston Texans team on the offensive side of the ball. And, one of those two that from when we were talking on the the T.Y. Hilton versus Houston side of things, went back through and kind of looked at that a little bit. And you're right. The last time that we saw like what everybody wants to write the narrative on with T.Y. Hilton just going crazy against Houston was really back in 2018 in week 14, when he went 9 for 12 for 199 yards there. Earlier that season had 4 for 6 for 115 yards. But in 2019, really didn't do much there when he played him, right? It was 75 yards for a high. That one, the other game that he played Houston that year, 18 yards receiving. When you look at 2020, he had a 71-yard reception or 71-yard game and a 110-yard game. So, but neither one of those scored a touchdown. So if you're playing half-point PPR, if you're playing some of those other things, not necessarily the best there. And then this year, right, earlier this year when he played Houston, which is supposed to be the big deal, right? He was 4 for 4 with 80 yards, no touchdown. So, he was earlier this year when if you played him and you had to play him, he's okay as a flex for season long, but absolutely. I think when you're talking DFS there, stay away from him. I don't necessarily see this game. I see this game getting to a point where it's out of hand, to the point where Jonathan Taylor gets faded down the stretch by that. And we see more of a Marlon Mack. We see some Naheem Hines to kind of finish this game out is really where I kind of see that happening and playing out there. But I like that. And I like the narrative that you're talking about there. Let's go ahead. And we got a couple of questions coming in here. So let's hit them up here real quick. Rex Burkhead versus Alex Collins versus Adrian Peterson. And it is a half-point PPR. That coming from Josh over on YouTube. Appreciate you tuning in there, Josh. What are your thoughts here on those three? How would you rank those three?
I would go Alex Collins, Rex Burkhead, Adrian Peterson. That's just me, and I'll tell you why briefly. Rex Burkhead playing the Colts, so I believe are top 10 in terms of defending running backs. Anytime on the opposite side of the field, you have to worry about Darius Leonard. That bums me out, so I want nothing to do with Rex Burkhead. We know D. Leonard, the maniac. This guy he teleports from sideline to sideline. Rex Burkhead won't see, he'll see a ton of work in terms of carries, but I wouldn't be shocked to see him average what he's been averaging, 2.5 yards a carry. I mean, it's god awful. To me, Alex Collins in a game at home against San Francisco. The matchup is tough, and Seattle looked god awful on Monday, but they're going to get him rolling. They're going to get him a few receptions, and again, very slim pickings here. I feel bad for you, Joshua, because it's an awful selection of players you got to use here. And Adrian Peterson, he's been with the team like 3-4 days. How much work could this guy actually get? We know he's the pro's pro. He's a man's man, but I still think Alex Collins sees sees the most work out of all three players here. So as I said, Collins, Burkhead, Adrian Peterson.
Yeah, the only reason that Burkhead has some intrigue to me is the fact that Philip Lindsay's still very doubtful to play in that one. I didn't see the final tally on whether or not he's going, and the fact that David Johnson has been dealing with some illness there as well. So that could ultimately play out to the point where you see a little bit more Rex Burkhead volume than you normally would. But I think that the Colts or the Texans are going to have to abandon the run game fairly quickly in this game in order to just try and keep pace. And there's going to be a lot of shots being taken from the quarterback side of things, more so than anything. But I like that, and that's probably how I would roll that thing as well. Just the intrigue around Burkhead would move him up above AP for me this week. One more question there. Brian on YouTube, deep league, full PPR, need to start two, Corey Davis, Josh Reynolds, Cortland Sutton, Matt Breida. Ooh, those are some goodies there. What do you think?
Right off the bat, obviously, I could see the question ahead of time, in the comment section when we're going through here. And to be honest with you, my first initial gut reaction was Josh Reynolds and Sutton. But the more you think about it, I don't want to say Cortland Sutton's been phased out, but he's, his targets have just not been there. Jerry Jeudy has commanded more work, and he's done a little bit more with them. And if you look at this, if you look at the Lions Minnesota game, this might not be a popular opinion, but Minnesota at Detroit, Minnesota is they're not really good against opposing wide receivers. I believe they're in the bottom half in terms of DVP. It's a very green plus matchup here. And Jared, you hate to like your seasonal fantasy hopeful playoff things have to rest on Jared Goff connecting with Josh Reynolds, but I could see it there. So I'm going to run with Josh Reynolds and Corey Davis here. Zach Wilson is back. We've seen Zach Wilson kind of look towards Corey Davis's way, and so that's what I'm going to do. Josh Reynolds and Corey Davis. It stinks because, again, I haven't seen any inactive list, or if Zach Moss is going to be a healthy scratch again. But Breida, how much room is he going to see at home against the New England defense on Monday night? So to me, too much risk involved there. I'm going to go Josh Reynolds and Corey Davis.
Yeah, and I think I was right there with you as well. The initial gut reaction, Sutton, Davis, not thinking about it, and then looking deeper, you may be onto something there with the Josh Reynolds pick there. I think Corey Davis is a smash on between these four here, right? And you already elaborated on that one. But the narrative that I see Denver having to try and play out there is they're going to have to try and control the clock. They're going to have to try and, keep the Chiefs offense off of the field there if they're going to have a chance in this game. So I look for the game script to be a very much Denver trying to pound the rock, try and just continually sustain drives, things like that, which doesn't necessarily bode well for Sutton, right? Who tends to do well in an intermediate to deep type of reception routes there. That's kind of how the tree works and how Denver has been using him a lot lately. So where Sutton may have some value is down the stretch. If Kansas City gets a big lead and then you're talking garbage time, trying to come back, things like that, like that's more so where the value lies. Whereas we know Detroit, they're going to have to try and throw the ball a little bit in that game to keep that one close. And same thing with the Jets. They're going to have to throw the ball to keep that game close a little bit. Whereas Denver, to keep that game close, is going to have to run and going to have to establish the run there. So I would move Sutton behind Josh Reynolds in that same case there as well. So I like it. I like it a lot. And then Chris, where are we heading next? I think I've got the next game, right? We're
Correct.
talking the Lions and the Vikings.
Oh.
Here is where we're going to head next here. And this one here is an interesting matchup, and I wanted to bring this one up here because I tend to listen to one of my co-hosts, Alex, who had to cover the Vikings for many years. And he has a saying when it comes to the Minnesota Vikings: the Vikings win games that they have no business winning, and then they lose games that they have no business losing. And this kind of fits that narrative of what he talks about there, right? The Lions are, the Lions are getting 7 points in this matchup here. The Vikings favored by 7, the over-under right around 46.5 here. And so I could see a narrative where the Lions have done a good job keeping games close and keeping games closer than necessarily the spread is indicated, especially over the last couple of games here. So it's not going to surprise me if the Vikings win this thing, but it's a field goal kind of game there, right? Again, you see many times where the Vikings going into the fourth quarter have a 7-point lead at some point in the fourth quarter, and they're a sub 500 team. meaning that they have had multiple leads in this fourth quarter by a touchdown, and they've either lost the game and they've played a lot of games extremely tight there. So not going to surprise me to see this one come down to a field goal type of game, even a backdoor cover type of thing happen here. I do think that the Vikings win. I do think that you're going to probably see the score be somewhere probably right around a 24-21 type of matchup, 20-17, somewhere right in there. So I think that this is going to be a bit of a premium. You're also points are going to come at a bit of a premium. You're also going to see some interesting things come to play when you're talking with the running back situation, because both of these teams are without their primary ball carriers. DeAndre Swift is out in this one. So Jamal Williams is a smash play for me in a lot of formats out there. You also see Alexander Madison, who is going to be playing over the injured Dalvin Cook, who's out. So he's a smash play in a lot of formats out there as well. And one thing that leads me a little leery on this is, maybe a Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen. I think they'll still get some work, but I'm going to temper expectations with them slightly in this game here as well. I know a lot of folks are all over Justin Jefferson and having him have a spectacular game, which the matchup would dictate that. But I'm going to temper my expectations, still see him with probably a top 10 finish, but not the top 5 finish that a lot of folks out there are calling for. What are your thoughts here?
I believe I looked at this morning. I believe in the absence of Dalvin Cook, it's been a short stint for Justin Jefferson, only a second year. But anytime Dalvin Cook has not played, Justin Jefferson has averaged around 105 yards receiving. So Justin Jefferson going to just go nuclear today. I mean, that's set in stone. And Adam Thielen always just kills the Lions, whether they're in Ford Field or they're in Minnesota here. So that three-headed monster of Kirk Cousins and Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson very much in play. Seasonal formats goes without saying, and even in DFS formats. As it stands now, Alexander Mattinson's ownership percentage in DFS formats is through the roof, and we know why. This kid's going to see 20 plus carries, and I don't even think that's crazy here. So this game is going to be fun. It's going to be competitive. The only thing I will say is I'm right there with you. I have the final score being 24-20 in favor of Minnesota, so I would take Detroit plus the 7 points. So from that angle, that's it. In DFS formats, there's really not too much to like from a Lions perspective, because Jamal Williams going to be chalky, not too much edge to be gained there. So yeah, I'm with you 100%. I agree with everything you said there. Minnesota wins, Detroit covers. Nothing crazy.
I like it. Let's go ahead and head to your last matchup you got here. Where are you taking us to?
We're going to go to Vegas. We can always have fun in Vegas. So from
Absolutely.
Houston to Vegas, not a far trip there. So I'm taking us all over the country. Cincinnati, not so fun. Houston, a little bit more fun. And then we go to Vegas. That's the capital of the America in terms of having fun, and what happens there stays there. But enough with the nonsense. Washington goes to Vegas. The over-under opened at 49 points. It just dipped down a point. It's at 48 here. And when we look at the Las Vegas Raiders side of things, Derek Carr has been fantastic as of late. Last time we saw the Vegas Raiders, they beat Dallas on Thanksgiving in an overtime game. And I'm sure I'm not saying anything that the folks don't already know, but when Derek Carr throws over 300 yards, the Raiders are 5-0. And anything under 300 yards, they're 0-6. So this whole offense goes through Derek Carr. They've continued to push the pace of play. They've continued to put the ball in Derek Carr's hands. So when you look at it, every Hunter Renfrow in play, Zay Jones in play. I hesitate to say Brian Edwards is in play, because I believe on Thanksgiving, even in an overtime game, kid only saw one target. That's very concerning, but I don't know. When you look at it, Washington, they're 29th overall in terms of defending opposing wide receivers. So we could see a day here where Derek Carr goes for 310, 320. Everybody's in on the fun. Hunter Renfrow, Zay Jones, Brian Edwards. In a perfect world, that would be the case here. On the Washington side of things, I love watching Tyler Heineke play. From a seasonal perspective, if you have him in a super flex league, he's absolutely in your starting lineup. The question is always, well, if you're not going to start Tyler Heineke, who do you have at this point in the season that would be better than Tyler Heineke? And right now, I would think that list is slim to none aside from the studs. Superflex, you start 2 quarterbacks, so Tyler Heineke is the guy here. Antonio Gibson, let me stop here briefly. He is, I believe, last I looked, it was just updated about 20 minutes ago. Antonio Gibson's ownership percentage on FanDuel and DraftKings is well over 30%. That's insane to me. I can't remember the last time we've seen a player with that high of an ownership percentage. So again, it's basically, if you play bingo, he's the middle square. Everybody has it. Everybody has Gibson. He's the free square. It's how you're going to differentiate your lineup around Antonio Gibson here. And we go down, DeAndre Carter. I've started to come around on him the last few weeks. He's seen a solid target share. He's put up, I believe, 12, 13, 15 overall PPR fantasy points in the last few weeks. So in DFS formats, only $5,400 on FanDuel, and on DraftKings, I believe he's only like $3,600. No brainer for me in a game where I expect the over to hit with ease here. I have Vegas winning this one 31-28, something along those lines. So in seasonal formats, maybe this is crazy. Maybe I'm excited, had too much coffee, but to me, this game is going to be fantastic from start to finish in terms of points. So I'm starting all my Washington football team players. I'm starting all my Vegas Raiders football players as well here, Derek.
I like it. I like it a lot. I see that one kind of playing out very similar to how you had that one there as well. And Antonio Gibson, season long, that's an automatic smash, right? Like this is the game that we see what happens without J.D. McKissic, because J.D. McKissic is out on this one. So it'll be interesting to see that one. And that's one of the ones that I'm going to be watching for. And I see what that looks like. So I know next year if J.D. McKissic is with the team, not with the team, those types of things. And that's some of the narrative that I'm going to be looking for there as well. Let's go ahead and head on over. We do have a couple of questions coming in here, so let's hit these up. Sigzamundo on YouTube. I will now type these words: Russell Wilson, or pick up Bridgewater, Garoppolo, Mac Jones, or Andy Dalton. Dalton's an out for me for certain on that one. Bridgewater, not a fan of that one. Garoppolo a little bit more so. Mac Jones, I would consider going that way, although Buffalo's defense has been pretty good, and I see that being a very low scoring game there. Whereas with Russ Wilson and this Seattle and San Francisco game, I think Seattle is going to have to throw the ball to stay in this thing, and DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett are going to have to be involved. The run game just isn't going to be there to move the ball. I don't see it happening that way. So I'd probably go Russ, Mac Jones, kind of in that order. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, you know what? I'm with you, but I just want to say Russ Wilson looked awful on Monday night.
Bad.
It was not embarrassing, but it made me feel bad because Russ has been good for so long, and he looked helpless out there. That's the only way I can put it here. So of these choices, I would probably lean Bridgewater or Mac Jones, and of the two, Bridgewater or Garoppolo here. And of the two, I would prefer Jimmy Garoppolo in a game where I believe they just absolutely lay the pipe to Seattle here. I have San Francisco putting up 28 or 31 points. So you'd like to think Jimmy will be accountable for 2 or 3 touchdowns in this one. So I'm rolling with Jimmy Garoppolo.
Okay, I like it. Dolphins defense or Rams defense? That is an interesting one there. I'm probably going to lean with the Dolphins defense myself.
Absolutely, yeah. Mike Glennon starting at quarterback. I mean, Miami should be doing well. I could see a defensive touchdown on this one, fairly early on.
Right. And the Rams may take a shot here or there. So I the Vegas even sees the Jacksonville Rams, the Jacksonville and LA game going much higher in point total. So I'll take the lower point total and a defense that has come on very strong lately. Another question, flex, Brandon Cooks, Hunter Renfrow, Elijah Moore, Damian Harris. This one coming from Sigmundo on YouTube. What are your thoughts here?
I'm going to go with Hunter Renfrow. I love this game. As I said, over-under sits at 49. I think each team has a chance to put up 30-plus points each way. So give me Hunter Renfrow, Derek Carr, Vegas Raiders. That's the way I'm going.
Very cool. I would co-sign on that one as well. And then if I'm looking to pivot on that, I typically always pivot to the running backs there. And so I'd probably look at Renfrow, then Harris. But Renfrow would be the guy there. You already mentioned it, that Vegas needs to put up 300 yards from Derek Carr in order to win. And Darren Waller's out. So that leaves Hunter Renfrow getting a lot of those targets that Darren Waller would normally get. So I like it. Pick 2, standard league, Mixon, Madison, Mitchell, Michelle, Montgomery, Sanders. Man, you have a stacked roster there on the running backs. Mixon is an automatic smash yes for me on this one, and I probably lean Madison. But I'm going to go to my rankings real quick. What are your thoughts?
I can do this one with my eyes closed. Want to see a trick?
Yep.
Mixon and Mattinson. Did I do that right? That's it. Done deal.
Okay. Yeah. And that's how I've got that as well. Madison and Mitchell, when I'm looking at my own rankings, are pretty close together here, but I did have Madison ranked higher than Mitchell. Sony Michel, while he may have a good game, right? I don't. He's not doesn't have necessarily that pop. Montgomery, I think, will have a good game. Sanders will have a lot of opportunity in this one. I think he'll see well over 20 plus opportunities in this one. The Philadelphia Eagles have been running the ball 40 times a game as of late. Jalen Hurts is not in there, so I don't see them going, hey, let's go out there and try and beat the Jets on Gardner Minshew's right arm here. So it'll be a point where you'll see the run game, and the run game will be a point of emphasis in this one. So I don't see them doing that one. But Miles Sanders is an interesting deal there, just from an opportunity and a workload volume. So very cool. We got a thanks guys there, and we are running out of time here. So we'll I think we'll skip my last one here. Since we're going to have to get out of here and get going so we can get the last things going. But if you guys have any last questions while we're going through the signups, post them here. We'll run through them real quick. But Chris, any final thoughts for the viewers and listeners?
No, I mean, it's getting down to the nitty gritty in terms of our seasonal fantasy football playoffs, DFS, injuries, and COVID stuff. That doesn't matter in DFS. So get in and just play a little bit more DFS. See how you like it. If you're already in there, then you know what I'm talking about. So thank you for having me on. I'm going to go put the Christmas stuff up outside. Put the wreaths up, put some lights up, and be in peace today.
That's also very much on my plan, is to do some Christmas decorating. So it'll be a good time, be a lot of fun. It's always a blast putting the house together and getting the spirit of Christmas kind of in there. And when you walk out, it's always a lot of fun, the magic, and especially if you have kids, things like that, and seeing kind of the wonder come to life on their faces as they look at this stuff. So absolutely, that is my plan there as well. Chris, thanks for joining me. It's always a pleasure having you on here and doing these Sunday shows. And I always learn so much from DFS, and then I turn around and set a lot of my lineups after we talk here as well. So guys, Chris gives the A+ premium type of DFS content out there. His bottom of the barrel content is phenomenal. You can find the link to it in the subscription over there to Team Rise or Fall with it, and you can subscribe to him over there or follow him over there on Twitter at Detroit Beastie. You can hit up the good old boys here at Good Old Boys FF on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and do us a favor, head over to YouTube, click the subscribe button, ring the bell. He's Chris. I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe.